But without further ado, thank you all for joining us today. Obviously, you are here for Joseph's House of Camden webinar. We celebrated our 10th anniversary at the end of last year. So this is going to be a discussion of a little bit of our history, as well as a look ahead at what we're planning next. And of course, how all of you who are with us today can look to get more involved. So of course, thank you to all of you for being here today. This is a fantastic turnout. Those of you that are on camera, I'm seeing some new and familiar faces. Obviously, big thank you to anyone here who's already been supporting us over the years, any community partners, former guests, business partners from the area. Just special thanks to all of you here at the top of our program. So before we really get into it, just some quick introductions. Obviously, as you can likely see in here, I'm Erin Hadden. I'm a volunteer and a development committee member. I've been involved with Joseph's House since early 2017 through my firm, Fish Tank PR, just helping with marketing, publicity efforts, overall organizing those things. Just make sure there's nobody else in the waiting room before I introduce the more important players. We have Mr. Shawn Sheekey, who is Joseph's House Executive Director since 2019 with us today, and Mr. Klein, who I'm sure many of you are familiar with. He's been involved since the very early days, currently our development director, but he's worn a lot of hats over the years, as you will be hearing about soon. And so before we jump into the program, let's just do a quick overview of the mission. So it's right there on the screen for those of you who want to read that, but quick overview really is that Joseph's House's mission is to really provide not just shelter, but a path forward for those experiencing homelessness in the South Jersey, Philadelphia area. So the way that we do this is working with leaders in the local area. It's really a collaborative, comprehensive solution. So we look to provide social services, employment services, medical assistance, addiction, mental health counseling, in addition to the main things you think of when you think homeless shelter: food, a place to sleep, safety, a sense of community. So just all around comprehensive solution, very local oriented. So we work with lots of local providers. We're going to hear more about that in just a bit. But another quick thanks to any local providers, service providers who are with us today who've joined. We're very glad to have you with us, not just now, but as we do our work every single day. And a quick programming note before I kick it over to John. I mentioned this before, but there will be some time for questions towards the end. So if you think of anything, just go ahead and jot it down. And we will certainly try to have time for all of that as we go. So I mentioned we're here to talk about the history a little bit. That's where I will kick this over to John Klein, who's going to take us back in time about 10 years.
Thank you, Erin, and thank all of you for joining us this morning. I thought I would, first of all, just tell you that, you know, in the 10 years, actually in our 11th year now, that Joseph's House has been doing what we've been doing here. We started with this little tiny floor space over in Camden on Stephen Street. We then launched 2 different capital campaigns. We now have a 17,000 square foot building with full-time functional day and night services. We have 30 employees, countless partners, volunteers, donors. We started out pretty small way back when, 10 years ago. And now it's a flourishing operation. And I'm happy and thrilled that you're joining us today to take this time to find out a little bit about how we got started and where we're headed. So I thought that I would start out by telling you why we chose the name Joseph's House. The image that you see on the screen before you reflects so many aspects of our decision to name it Joseph's House. Originally, there were like 7 of us who were sitting around a table talking about mission, and we talked about the name for our mission. So this picture, this image, to me anyway, is a clear sense of warmth, safety, of focus and care and trust. Mary sleeps in the background there, and it seems to me her expression is a trusting one, a confident one, confident in Joseph's gentleness and strength. And Joseph is focused entirely on that infant with love and tenderness. So as we talked about the spirit that would permeate our work, we thought, hey, what better spirit than what Joseph displays right here in this image. So his his commitment, his house would be ours. Ours would be his. So more than 10 years ago, we had those thoughts, and they still remain our hope and our dedication. If you will, it's a pretty challenging thing to consider, that we would be as attentive to each person as Joseph was to that child. And yet that's what we aspire to do. That's who we are, and we hope that's what we do. So Joseph's House actually was formed in 2010, December 22nd, as Erin said, December 22nd, 2010. That's when our paperwork was finalized with the federal government. We became a 501c3 nonprofit. Our corporate formation documents were filed, and there we were, officially recognized. But the work had begun about a full year before that. And it began when homelessness really came to our door. I was working with Father Bob McDermott, whose image is there on the screen. He's pastor of St. Joe Pro Cathedral. That image is there as well. And homelessness came to the church. It came to the buildings all around us. It came to East Camden, and it was growing, we thought, throughout the city of Camden. One image that I'll never forget is people sleeping on cardboard boxes on our porch. They had multiple layers of trash bags over them with holes for their heads and their arms, keep the moisture out and the warmth in. And then they covered themselves with a blanket, and they slept right out on our porch. We began by passing out sandwiches and bus fare to rescue missions in Trenton and in Atlantic City. But really, in our hearts, we believed and still believe that we have to respond more significantly, more structurally. That spirit that's in our hearts, God caring for his people, working, we're just partners in that work. That's what motivated us to say, okay, we got to do more than a sandwich. And so Bob invited others to join us around the table. There were 7 people, 5 pictured here, but a couple of others. And we thought we wanted to do some research into what services were available in the city of Camden and the county of Camden. We wanted to talk with some partners that we knew were doing some work over in Philadelphia, the Project Home and the Bethesda Project. So after that sort of research and dialogue, which took almost a year for us to formulate, okay, here's who we're going to be. We're going to be Joseph's House, and here's how we're going to begin. We're going to begin with a drop-in cafe. It was the first of many decisions that we made that really reflected the influence of God's Spirit working in our hearts. We looked all around for somebody to help us by giving us space where we could operate. Lutheran Social Ministries of New Jersey operated a space during the day in a building on Stephen Street. It was called New Visions. That's the image you see there. They operated during the day on the first floor, and it gave us the opportunity to operate overnight, 7 nights a week in the winter months. So we did. We began, and we offered people nothing more than coffee and tea, some soup, some bread, and floor space. A little tiny common room that could fit comfortably 30 people. We'd set up tables and chairs every night. People could sit and talk, have something to eat. And then we'd break the tables and chairs down, and the people had floor space. They were grateful for the floor space. They were grateful for the sense of community. And by the end of a 6-month winter season, there was trust that was developing, and we knew what their needs were. They shared them with us, and those needs became our programming. So after 3 years, and by the way, that image you see there of cars covered with snow, that was January the 26th, 2011. That was our first night of business on Stephen Street. We had 22 people come and stay with us, and they all stayed the night. We thought that maybe some would drop in and grab and go, but they stayed. And so we stayed there for 3 seasons. But every year we had greater demand than capacity. And we knew that we had to do more. We knew we needed to stay open year round. Homelessness was an issue that didn't exist only in the winter. And we had a space for partners to deliver services that we know the people needed. So we began to look around, and once again, just as LSM Lutheran Social Ministry stepped up to allow us to use this space. People came together, benefactors, a real estate guy helped us find a place, and we settled on Atlantic Avenue. It was a 17,000 square foot building. It was abandoned, needed a lot of work, but all we could see was the possibilities that it would provide. We could absolutely have more space for all the things that we knew we had learned over those 3 seasons that we needed to provide. And so benefactors came along, volunteers came along, donors came along, all kinds of, ingredients that you need to make something like this happen. One of the guys that I met in my last year on Stephen Street told me that, John, no one gets out of homelessness alone. It takes a lot of encouragement, a lot of support from a lot of people. And that's exactly what our story. We didn't get here on Atlantic Avenue by ourselves. We didn't get on Stephen Street by ourselves. There were an awful lot of people that came together to make it happen. So we opened on Atlantic Avenue we bought the building in August of 2013, launched a capital campaign, renovated it, and opened it in January of 2014. And from then up until 2018 anyway, we provided day services, night services, but we realized once again that the demand was greater than we thought we could handle. So the board decided to put an addition on the building. When we first moved in, we renovated 10,000 of the 17,000 square feet. And Lutheran Social Ministries, as Providence would have it, they sold the building on Stephen Street and asked, could they take over that other 7,000 square feet in our building? So they operated New Visions on one section of our building, and we operated Joseph's House in the other. So while we were talking about putting an addition on, LSM, Lutheran Social Ministries, was talking about bringing their program to an end. So in June of 2018, they told us that this is the decision of their board. They were going to close the program. So we decided to scrap the idea of an addition in favor of renovating the entire 17,000 square feet. We were looking to create a place where people felt cared for, where people felt like they could come in, feel warmth, the colors on the walls, the lighting, the flooring, the furnishings, all of the things that we would provide. Kind of reminded me, I don't know if anyone has ever seen that Field of Dreams movie with Kevin Costner back in 89 or 90. So here's this Iowan farmer who plows under a cornfield and he builds a baseball field. And one day Shoeless Joe Jackson shows up and he's blown away by it. And he asks, Kevin Costner, Ray Kinsella, do you think I could come back? There are others who want to come and we'd love to be here. Can we come? And he says, yes, of course. We built it for you. And this is exactly what we did. We came together, people of goodwill, people of good heart. Everyone bought into the vision, donors, benefactors, volunteers. And we designed a space that would be nurturing and caring and create that impression that you are cradled, you are cared about and cared for. And the result of which we hoped would mean you could take on those quality of life issues that you have, allow us to work with you and move you through and out of homelessness. This is an image of reconstructing the building. The entire 17,000 square feet was reconstructed. So big project. It started in April of 2019, was finished in September of 2019. And it created a space where all of our partners could come together and have a place individually to meet with people and care for them in ways that we knew from our days early on Stephen Street that needed to happen. These are benefactors who helped us. A special shout out to the Connolly Foundation and JBJ Soul Foundation, because those two actually were instrumental in helping us buy the building on Stephen Street, on Atlantic Avenue back in August of 2013. We approached them with our vision. They said yes. And now we approached them a second time in 2019 and said, we want to do this. Would you join us in that? And here's what was created. They were benefactors along with others that you saw there, and along with so many individuals who made all of this possible. Often, I think, well, maybe there were just coincidences that people came and, did roofing for us, did housing for us, did this or that. Einstein once said that coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous. So we had an awful lot of those sort of coincidences. And I just know, and I think our board and all of us who work with JHOC believe that this work is bigger than us. It really is about God caring for his people. Here's an image from our open house. So we finished construction in September, and we had an open house in October. And you can see that Tricia Bradley there, featured in the upper left-hand corner, our day program director, is explaining to people like John Bon Jovi and Mayor Frank Moran and former Mayor Dana Red, showing them around what we've been able to do here with their support and the prospect of great hope and great promise for people who, given the opportunity, will improve their quality of life and will move into their own housing. So I want to pass it over to Shawn Sheekey at this point, because Shawn came along just before this grand opening. Shawn was hired in August of 2019. The construction was basically over, and he was tasked, among all of the other things that he does as executive director, he was tasked with making sure this open house touched all the bases we wanted to touch. He emceed it and just did a wonderful job. So I'm going to pass it over to Shawn and let him take it from here. Thank you for listening. And as Erin said, there are questions available at the end. So if you have any, let us know.
Great. Thank you so much, John. And thank you, Erin, and welcome everyone. John likes to tell that story about me coming on board and being faced with planning a big party, right? So I always remind him I had the easy part. New executive director, having the honor to walk into this beautiful facility with the work already being done, the tough work of raising the money. The team in place did that. We put together a great event. It was pretty cool when I got to introduce John Bon Jovi. So all in all, I wasn't complaining. So we moved beyond the open house. We started to look at the winter months coming and things like Code Blue, and really looking forward to turning the page to a new year, which we did, 2020. Lots of enthusiasm. We really were looking to ramp up further the day program that we were really highlighting at the grand open house, with securing additional partners, providing services that are so critical to our guests. Then along came this little thing called COVID, and we were faced with a global pandemic. That obviously turned everything upside down. Our initial response, there was no playbook for this, right? It was a pretty scary time for, I think, a lot of people, particularly us here in a homeless shelter, because you have to remember there wasn't even testing back then, let alone vaccinations. And happened to look at the calendar, and it was actually May 8th of last year when we did our first round of testing of guests. So we literally went 2 months not knowing a thing. We didn't know if we were sitting on a ticking time bomb, if we had dozens of people infected, how that was impacting others. So we really had to rely upon the CDC, the New Jersey Shelter Consortium, which Joseph's House is part of, other homeless groups, to look at best practices in a congregate setting. Because you got to imagine, we were in the worst possible setup, right? We're all under one roof, a lot of people, activities, eating together, which runs counter to everything we were being told by the CDC. So basically, we had to take some immediate steps. And one of the first things we did was take our roster count down to 50 guests. That was sort of the number they were saying for big groups. So through attrition over time, we did that. You heard about obviously the things still today: social distancing, washing hands, temperature checks, observing guests when they come at night. Do they look ill? Questioning them. How do you feel? What did you do today? Were you riding transit? Were you riding the river line? Were you interacting with others? So those were the tools we had at the time to really just try to make sure we were keeping, as best we could, all of our guests safe. One of the things we had the opportunity to do was to move women over to our waiting room, because obviously that was not utilized because all the programs were closed. So that further separated our guests, provided optimal space between them, distancing them for all the activities we do, and particularly during meals. I do have to say, though, I was really impressed with Joseph's House board, the way they rolled up their sleeves and got involved. They established protocols early on, very early on. We set up a weekly task force where we just, we continued to pivot when we needed to pivot, react to things as things evolved. While a lot of programs were closing, this board was talking to me about how do we expand our services? How do we reach those people who are unsheltered? Those truly street people who don't want to come in. They're out living in tents. They're out living on the street. They need to follow protocols as well, right? They need to wash their hands. They need to be mindful of hygiene and things like that. So with the assistance of the county, we had deployed a number of porta potties and hand washing stations to help them out there, because they typically would go to a library or another facility. But again, most of those things were closed because of the pandemic. So even with all those steps, we ended up with staff contracting COVID, guests contracted COVID, I contracted COVID, but we just continue to roll. As our chairman is fond of saying, we've become really hardened soldiers. And here we are, 14 months later into this crazy pandemic, where we actually are rapid testing every week here. We have the ability to test any new person coming into Joseph's House, as well as our staff. And that really gives us the peace of mind to know that we're on the right track. And, we haven't seen infections recently. So those were a lot of the early on steps. And we did some other things. Again, we now purchased hand washing stations, and we rent spot pots, so we can keep those things going. But we did everything with PPE. There's not, I think, a piece of PPE we don't have. We put up screens, we do electrostatic cleaning, sneeze guards, you name it. We put plastic screens between cots, and just took all those steps that we felt were necessary, and did the best we could to keep those people under our roof safe. So you'll see some pictures here. The upper left, you'll see how spread out those cots are. When you see normal times, they're really like 2 feet apart, where we can fit up to almost 90 people. In this case, we're set up for 50. So that's kind of what we followed until we get fully through the pandemic. Top right was Virtual Hospital. Like I said, they were the first to come out here on May 8th and give us a sense of how are we doing with this COVID? Do we have infections? And they were just phenomenal. And speaking of phenomenal, bottom, obviously, there is the Joseph's House staff, who I'm so proud of. They've been such a team. They've been so dedicated to this. They threw their heart into it. Closing was never an option for us, right? These people need us. They need help, but particularly during a pandemic. So I can't thank them enough for stepping up to the challenge. And if you can see the signs that they're holding, it says heroes work here. And that's definitely for sure. So next slide. So looking ahead, I know we all want to look ahead beyond 2020 and part of 2021, but Joseph's House was always looking ahead. We finished a 3-year strategic plan. We're now looking to initiate another one, secure a vendor, sit with stakeholders and partners, and involve our guests and our staff in some feedback on where do we see Joseph's House going in the future. And some of the ideas that we're batting around right now, things like transitional housing. What is the next logical step for our guests when they leave a cot and we provided the services we need for them, and how do we transition them into housing, and then ultimately fully independent. Again, additional street outreach for those unsheltered people. One of the ideas was to place a social service hub in the planned renovations, the multi-million-dollar renovations to the Walter Rand Transportation Center. So we're looking into that. And then, one of the logical steps, I think, in the evolution of Joseph's House is, do we become a 24/7, 365 shelter, right? Considering the days back at Stevens Street, where we could deal with guests all day and not have to close part of the day. So there are a lot of the things that we're going to look at our new strategic plan. One of the things that has been discussed and will be on site in just a month is we always had the need for a nurse or medical personnel because our guests are challenged with so many medical issues. We finally struck a deal with Cooper where we're going to have medical interns on site here that can help our guests with everything from clean needles to appropriate medical dispensing, their meds, doctor's appointments, things like that. So that's a big step forward, and that's just one of those things. When you plan for it and you can make it happen, it's a good thing. Couple pictures here. The picture on the left is our famous radio, Ernest Lindsay, longtime employee here at Joseph's House, our intake supervisor, helping out a guest. Center photo, again, Walter Rand Transportation Center about to undergo multi-million-dollar renovation, which will be a good thing. The slide on your right is a particularly touching one. That's one of our former guests, George, working with Denise Mattia, our case manager. And George was a longtime resident at Joseph's House. He would come and go. We were also proud the day we handed him that gold key and he opened his apartment door and we took pictures and, he made it to independence, but he would often come back and work with Denise on doctor's appointments and things like that. But sadly, George passed away a month ago. And, it's tough for us because these folks become family to us. And George was one of those that really hit us hard because, we saw what can be done with people here at Joseph's House and what your support does. So that's one of those stories that we wanted to share because he was a real success story. We were so proud of him. So sustaining partners. So what is it you guys do for Joseph's House, right? How do you sustain us? Well, I get the benefit every day of watching what goes on here, on the ground floor, if you will. And I'll give you a few examples. When you talk to a guest who has struggled with addiction for years and finally comes to Joseph's House, and we work with him for weeks, and he finally admits, I'm ready to go, I need help. And we watch him get into a cab and off he goes, and we find out later how well he's doing, and he's beaten his addiction. And he's a success story. That's what your support does. Or the female guest who comes in frustrated after years of trying to apply for Social Security disability. And our team works with her. And although it may take weeks and months, we secure that disability, those benefits for her. And now she's on her way to independent living and no longer experiencing homelessness. And that's what your support does. And the countless people who sit with our team, whether it's on a court call or a doctor's appointment or what have you, so many connections are made, such important things are done here. And it's all because of your support. And I can't thank you enough as executive director for that support because you do make a difference. So I'm going to turn it over to Erin now. I thank you again.
Yeah, thank you, Shawn and John. I'm sure now the question on many of your minds after hearing that is how can you get involved or get more involved individually with your family, workplace, parish. There's always ways to get involved with Joseph's House, and it can look different depending on how you want to be involved. So a lot of options laid out here on this slide. We'll also be following up with an email that has some helpful links, particularly when it comes to where you can direct financial support, in-kind donations. We're always looking for products depending on the season, clothes, activities, items for the shelter for the guests to use. Are always open for virtual tours and either in-person or virtual volunteer opportunities. Always happy to discuss group and corporate volunteer events as well. Many of you are likely connected with us either on Facebook or over our email newsletter or both, since I'm imagining that's how you found your way here this morning. But we're always also encouraging folks to spread the word. We're looking to, diversify our network of supporters throughout the community and throughout really anyone you think might be interested. So encourage your friends to follow us as well, pass along our newsletters. That's always a great way to do it. And of course, if you're not sure where to go, how you want to get started, you can also always reach out to the team. That email right there, info@jhoc.org, is best place to start if you have some ideas, suggestions, or just want to talk through some of these opportunities with the group a little bit further. So without further ado, I do believe we have some time for questions. Obviously, big thanks again before we get into it for all of you for joining us today. This has been hopefully pretty interesting and a great turnout that we're happy to see.